What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the Bianconeri zone. And well, there's breaking news because Tudor has been sacked, even though early on in the morning it didn't look like he was gonna get sacked. Actually, it looked like he was getting the next 4 games before the international break, so the next 2 weeks before the international break to potentially turn things around. However, the club decided an hour ago or so, or announced an hour ago, that they sacked Igor Tudor. And it's not really a shock that the management sacked. Maybe it's a shock that they did it now, I guess, because the vibe was and the talk was that they were not really considering it. But it's not a shock that this management didn't like Tudor and that they moved on from Tudor because, well, they didn't like Tudor. You know, he was not their coach. It was very obvious in the summer when we tried for Conte, Gasperini, Marco Silva, like name it, and even Giuntoli before that tried for Mancini and somebody else. I blanked out right now before actually going to Tudor, and that's the basis of, well, a flop relationship. It's as simple as that. You know, if you start the season with a coach you do not like as a club, then you already start the season on a bad foot. You already start the season basically points down, whatever. You just, everybody feels that he's not the coach. And to be honest, it's not a happy day. Actually, it's a very sad day. I'm not sad because Tudor is not at the club, because I don't think Tudor is a good coach. Even with a good squad, I don't think Tudor is a good coach. So even if he had the 2015 Juve side, I don't think you can trust Tudor to tactically outperform opponents, set up a team in a better way, etc. I don't think he's that type of coach. So I don't feel sorry for Tudor. It's what it is. I do feel sorry for the fans and the club, his club's history, excuse me, because this is the first time we sack a coach before the end of October since the, I don't know, 71, I think it was. That's a very long time ago. That's over 60 years ago that we didn't no, that's not true. Almost 6 years that we didn't sack a coach before October. We usually are not a team that sack coaches mid-season. We've done it now twice in the space of a season or a year. So there's nothing to be happy about, because this is not, we have a fantastic squad. And if we get a top coach right now in, which we're not going to get, by the way, we can turn things around. That's also not the case, because these players managed to get their second coach sacked in the space of not even a year. The same players who were talking yesterday that, it's not a tactical thing, it's a mental thing, that they're having fun in training, they can wait to play games right now. Those are the players who got another coach sacked. So there's nothing to be happy about right now. There's just even more worries, bigger worries at the club right now, that things are, well, moving in the completely wrong direction. Because again, we don't sack coaches mid-season. We've been doing that now for 2 seasons in a row. That's something, it resembles Man United, who obviously have Ferguson for a very long time, and then they start sacking coaches for the fun of it, because they couldn't get something right. And that's the same feeling I have right now. We went from Sarri, who won the league, to Pirlo, to Allegri, to Motta, to Tudor, and now to whoever is jumping in to take control of these bunch of losers at this moment in time. Because they keep talking. Even yesterday after the game, the players who might be an issue come out and speak. Perin, I don't want to hear Perin speak, because he's not a leader. Cannot wait to get rid of these players. I don't want to hear Locatelli speak at this moment in time, because he's not a leader, and he was waffling yesterday after another embarrassing performance, which he was probably one of the worst players on that pitch as well. Start talking about, this is not about tactical things, it's a mental thing. But last season, when we sacked Motta, nobody of these players wanted to talk about a mental thing. They were all about, it's tactical. Motta is asking too much from us right now. And now they have a coach who's asking absolutely nothing from them, apparently, tactically. That's what Locatelli is basically saying. And now it's a mental issue. So these players come out to say that they didn't like Motta, but they do like Tudor, but they don't have the mindset to actually play for this club. So is this a good day for this club? Absolutely not, because there are more questions than not at this moment in time. There's not an easy solution. I wish there was an easy solution, but there's not. You have a board management, whatever. We don't have a sporting director. You have Modesto come out yesterday saying he's our guy. And I'm not saying come out pre-game and say, well, we're going to sack Tudor if he doesn't win today. I'm not even saying that. But the way you spoke, it's the communication, towards the fan base, is completely wrong. Come out and make it clear that, yeah, he is under pressure. And so are the players, because it's not good. We lost up to yesterday, so forget yesterday because they spoke before the game finished. So we were winless in the last 7, and not one person from management, not Chiellini, not Modesta, nobody came out and said, you know what, this is Juve, and we haven't won a game in the last 7. It's unacceptable, and that this cannot be the case. At least say that in front of the camera. No, they come up, they say there's no crisis, Tudor is our guy, and we hadn't won a game in the last 7. So the communication towards the fan base, towards the world, basically, is completely wrong. It's completely off. It's not okay. It's not acceptable, etc. And the day after that, you sack him. And to be honest, out of the last 8 games, this Lazio game was not even the worst out of the last 8 games, by the way. It wasn't good, but it was not the worst, So that makes it even more hilarious, I think, at this moment in time. Hilarious in the way, well, you need to laugh, otherwise you actually are going to cry. We have Tudor on the balance sheet, whatever, on the payroll. We have Motta and his staff, so up to 25 million euros that we still need to pay because Motta said no to Monaco and other opportunities, and I have no idea who's going to hire Tudor at this moment in time. So that is also a situation the club has created, not the Motta one, but the new management has created that with handing Tudor a new contract, a coach they didn't really want, and now you have a massive payroll, and you need to start looking for a new coach. So for Udinese, it's Brambili who takes over, the next gen coach, a coach who got sacked at Foggia, I think, I don't know, 4 or 5 games into the season because he was doing a horrible job. He's okay with working with young players. I'm not going to knocking on that, but again, you sack a coach and you don't have somebody lined up, and now you need to ask a Serie C coach to manage a Serie A game that we absolutely need to win. Like, they're treating this situation like we are in preseason and we have time. We have no time. We haven't won in 8, and you need to beat Udinese. You need to beat Cremonese, because if you don't, if there's any glimmer of hope of getting into the top 4 for some odd reason that we managed to do that with this horrible squad, you're basically throwing that away right now because you're asking somebody who has absolutely no experience to take a group of players who are there, laying on the ground, doing whatever basically, and try to beat a Serie A coach with a Serie A team. That's what the club is asking right now. So the situation is not joyful. I'm not happy that Tudor got sacked. I wish Tudor didn't get sacked because he was doing a good job, but that's not the case. So I'm not happy. I would be happy if the news was Jurgen Klopp is the coach and 80% of the squad is leaving because they don't have the right mindset. I will be happy with that. I would be happy if the news was, well, January it's set in stone, Cambiasso and Locatelli and all these players are sold because the mindset doesn't align with the mindset that should be the case at a club like Juve. Then maybe I will start being happy. But right now, Tudor is gone and there are more questions than answers. That's the reality of the matter. Let me bring up a few comments. I don't have my glasses on, so I need to right decision. But regardless, which managers comes in, we're just mediocre side. I'm not in the mood for Spalletti. By the way, we will talk about that in a little bit. But I do agree. Which manager comes in right now wants to take on this job. I think that's also important. Wants to come in, take on this job with no guarantees, and basically tie his, not legacy, but like his CV to this side. Because keep in mind, these coaches are thinking about their own as well, and at the end of the day, you're going to take over a club that is all over the place, has no clear direction at this moment in time, and a squad of players who think they are good enough to play for this club, who think they have the right mindset, that they are leaders to play for this club. Who's going to take on this job? I happened to go watch my first Juve game against Genoa, and it was Tudor's first game. Next week, I happen to be at Udinese game. Well, you're going to see Brambilla, so enjoy that. Hopefully they win, especially if you need to travel for those games. Morning, Ali. I'm sorry he didn't succeed, but I'm glad he made they made the move. The players are cowards still. Yeah, I do agree with that fully. Perin, Cambiasso, Locatelli, Mechanic, Kostic, Kelly, Gatti. Oh my God. There's a lot of players to be disposed, and most of them got 2 to 5 million euros contract. That's also a big problem. We're lost. Tudor is not the only problem. The problem is much deeper. Is it official? It's 100% official right now. The club announced it. We should keep our expectations to the bare minimum. Well, I mean, lowering them even lower than now will basically be relegation zone at this moment in time. The expectations. But again, Tudor got sacked. Is that the solution right now? No. I don't. Despite who the coach is going to be, keep in mind yesterday post game, you have actually during the game, you have Tudor subbing off Cambiasso at halftime, a player who is supposed to be a leader at this club, is subbed at halftime because Tudor said he's not doing the job I asked him to do. He's just not, like, he was getting cooked, basically. He's not doing what I'm asking him to do. And Tudor said, I told him mid-game that adjustments, and he didn't make those adjustments, so I subbed them up out at halftime. That's Cambiasso, a player, by the way, whose agent came out and openly spoke about being compared to Maldini. That's one. A player who said, well, yeah, the issues with Man City in January, were in my head. That's the same player, by the way. And third off, took shots at Mota saying, well, now we have more fun in training. We cannot wait to play games. That is the same player. That is Cambiasso, by the way. That's the player or that's one of the players, that should be a leader, or is a leader, is a leader apparently in this locker room. These are the leaders we have in this locker room. When I talk about Perin and Pinsoglio and Locatelli, and people are like, oh, Pinsoglio is meaningless. He's a third goalkeeper, or Perin is a second goalkeeper. I'm not talking about qualities, by the way. I'm talking about in this locker room, according to the reports, and actually according to the players themselves, these are the players who are the leaders of that locker room, whatever you want to call it. Perin, Pinsoglio, Cambiasso, Locatelli, players who have won nothing. Locatelli won the Euros, but it's not with Juve. Other than that, Pinsoglio, his best thing was, I don't know, starting for Latina, a mid-table Serie B team. Perin, who his best thing was saying that I'd rather sit on the Juve bench than play. Those are the leaders at this club. So when I talk about, I cannot wait for finally these players to be out of this club, I'm not even talking about their qualities. I don't really care about these qualities right now. These are not the players who have the right mindset. When Mota got sacked, Perin put out a story saying, well, everybody's the architect or something of their own, I don't know, future or whatever it was. Cryptic messages that tells you these players do not have what it takes to play for this club, and they are allowed to do that because the management is absent. The management is okay with that. They don't care, and I actually believe that these guys are leaders for wherever good is left in that locker room. These players, I will actually celebrate if these players are not at this club anymore. When I said last season, I do not care about these players. They're a bunch of losers. Factually, they're losers. They don't win. They haven't won. They're losers. I don't care if we move all of them out. And people were attacking me saying, oh, you're harsh. I'm not harsh. I've seen winners at this club, and those winners are not Perin, Pinsoglio, Locatelli, Cambiasso, whoever is viewed as a leader in the locker room. They're not those players. Gatti, they're not winners. They're not leaders. They're not. So whoever comes in right now is going to need to deal with the same bullshit again until the club makes a statement to say, you guys are sold next season. Gone. You're out. You're not part of this club anymore. You are part of the issue, actually. And they are part of the issue because they, like the Motta, Allegri, and Tudor. A lot of the same players are still in this locker room, Openda wasn't here. Jonathan David wasn't here. Yildiz just came about. Segrova wasn't here, for example. Colt Miners wasn't here. Like, a lot of these players were not here, but a big portion of the players were here for those coaches. And it's the same issue. They're getting coaches sacked over and over again and always come out saying, It's not us, you know. It's not us. It's not that. It's tactically, oh, the training is it's too hard. Motta's asking too much from us. Now it's like, oh, but the training sessions are good enough. They're more fun. We want to play, but the mindset is not okay. So okay, you know, if it's not the coach, then it's you guys, right? If it's not the coach, because there's a second coach right now, and you keep putting up the same abysmal performances and results, well, then it's on you. It's not on the coach anymore. It's on you. And now hopefully, finally, the club wakes up to this and they're like, okay, we changed Tudor, whatever, which we should have done in the summer. Now you're stuck with limited options. But in the summer or starting January, we're starting to move out a lot of these players because they are not good enough. They don't have the mindset. They don't have the ability to play for this club. So that's the only hope. And that's my only glimmer of hope where I'm like, okay, maybe we can return and do actually something in the future, in the near future. Um, I hope they don't get Spalletti on a long-term contract. Also, I don't want him at all. He hated Juve players for Italy. I'm not a big Spalletti fan, so, but I don't care that he hated Juve players for Italy, to be honest, because the players he hated were Locatelli and Cambiasso, and they're ass. Like they're not like they shouldn't be playing for this club, you know. So I don't really care about that. So maybe that is the solution. He starts benching these players and they start moving out. Allegri in his presser, Tudor sacked. If it's true, I'm really sorry. He's a great guy. Good. He's the only coach who didn't beat Tudor, so he must be feeling sick right now. Allegri. Everybody's beating Tudor, but he managed not to do that. How can you get rid of these of crap when their contracts keep getting extended? Well, that's also an issue, obviously. Now nobody can help you. The problem is much deeper beyond coach players. Even the players' ego and money is a big, issue. We need a really reset, like City. We need a reset. We need a reset. We cannot have these half solutions every single summer where it's like, okay, now we're going to change the coach, and then we're going to change one player, and then maybe another player. At the end of the day, you're going to need to start making the obvious and maybe tough decisions to say, okay, we need to cut our ties with these players because they're not good enough. We need to do it right now. Otherwise, we'll keep going on in this endless cycle where we do maybe change a couple of players, maybe the coach, and it keeps getting worse and worse. And at one point, you're stuck with 25 million euros on coaches who are not even coaching your team right now, in Motta and Tudor and their staff. They're not coaching the team, but we're going to need to pay them 25 million euros. That is a massive issue. You cannot keep doing that over and over and over again. At one point, as a club, you just need to sit back and be like, okay, this is not okay what we're doing. We need to get to the root of the problem, and we sack the coach or we change coach twice, and the players are still here and the results are still the same. Yeah, Cambiaso's not going to enjoy training now at this moment in time. Why would any coach or good player join Juve anymore? Money. How can we reset? Like I said, they keep getting their contracts renewed. Yeah, that's a decision they need to make right now. The issue is for the management. Is the management, not the choice? I mean, I don't know what the choice is going to be. I don't know which decision the club is going to make right now. I have no clue. I think nobody knows what the club is going to do. Di Marzio saying Spalletti is the leading candidate, or the club is looking at Spalletti as their main option. There's talks about Palladino, etc. It's going to be one of those two, unless they surprise everyone and make a different decision. But if you hire Spalletti, he's going to be your coach also for the following season. And I don't think that's what the club wants. Otherwise, in the summer, when Conte said no and Gasperini said no, the club would have told Spalletti, okay, you can get that long-term contract, because if we need to give it to Tudor, we will give it to you, if Spalletti is really their guy. So hiring Spalletti on this season and next season is another hiring they don't really believe in. I'm sorry, because if you believe in that, you've done it. You would have done it last summer. You wouldn't have given Tudor that contract extension. You would have told Spalletti, you can get this season like Tudor and an option or a contract extension for the following season. So until 27, go to the Club World Cup and start building on this new Juve side. But they didn't do that. That tells you that they never viewed Spalletti as a long-term solution. So for me, hiring Spalletti, whatever I think of Spalletti, I'm not the biggest Spalletti fan. I don't think he's a fantastic coach, to be honest. But if they do that, they tell me again they are panicking and they're being actually bullied into handing him a long-term contract because they don't have other options left. So another worrying sign, in my opinion, if you get Spalletti. But right now, it feels like they're not really prepared. It feels like they don't have a real option out there saying, okay, we're gonna hire Spalletti, and we're gonna do this and that, But yeah, again, not prepared because they sacked the coach and Brambilla, the next gen coach, is taking over for Udinese. So that's not being prepared. Get Xavi as a coach and develop our young guns, and then get rid of those players like Cambiasso. Xavi's not taking this, to be honest. I don't think the club will consider Xavi as well. If I could, I would literally want every single one of them out. The only exception, damn it, will be Yildiz, because I like his personality and see a champion mentality within him. But that's at this point, I wouldn't do it. We need a total overhauling. Some players have to leave to save the club. This is not the club I have loved since '91. Yeah, but I mean, it's like somebody said, we extended Gatti, for example. That's not a sign that we want to move things out. We extended Rugani. I'm bringing it back to Rugani when people are like, again, he can do a job. Kostic can do a job. With people telling me in the summer, have you seen the job he tried to do yesterday? Is that the job you want to see a player do at this club? If that's the job, like that's part of the issue. People keep saying, oh, you're focusing on the wrong thing. Rugani extension is not really the issue. It is. These players are not good enough to play for Juve. And it's not me telling them. It's previous coaches and club as well saying, go out on loan because you're not good enough. We need to get rid of you. And somehow they end up on long-term contracts. And I need to believe that, well, this is fantastic business from this club. Keeping Rugani, keeping Kostic, extending Gatti, all these players who are pointless, were not good enough, not even good enough for lower level teams, compared to us, or should be lower level teams. I need to believe, what, they're good enough to bring this Juve back to the good old days. The good old days being, I don't know, 5-6 years ago. That's, to me, that's absolutely madness. I cannot grasp that concept. I can't. If you're witnessing what we're all witnessing, not just me, and you believe that these are good decisions, extending or keeping Kostic, extending Gatti, extending Rugani, etc., refusing offers for certain players, then okay, fine. But we will be here every single summer over and over again. Not even summer, it's October, it's almost winter. November, it's winter. It's not even summer, What's your opinion about Mancini? I think he did well to build Inter and Man City. Yeah, but it was different time and different situation. I'm not a big Mancini fan as well. All the current candidates are better than Tudor, so surely we're not getting worse than what we are seeing right now. Well, it's the same player, so I cannot completely say yes or no to that. Right now, I don't think any coach, from what I've seen from this group of players, from these players, I cannot believe that whoever comes in is going to turn this around. So that's why I'm not really too fussed at this moment in time about that. Rugani is the only winner in the locker room. Yeah, and that was not even as the main guy as well. That's the sad part. Do you think there will be conditions for the new coach playing without Vlahovic, playing 4-3, or using Yildiz as a playmaker? Nope, I don't think that. You cannot hire a coach based on that. You cannot hire a coach and tell them you need to do that, otherwise you're not going to get the job. I just wanted to point out that Giuntoli extended Arthur's contract. Yeah, that was to spread out the wages. At the end of the day, that's not really it's frustrating, but that's kind of okay in terms of they just spread out the wages. They were going to pay those wages anyway. It's just better on the books. You can spread it out over 2 years instead of paying it in 1 year. That is the only reason. He didn't get a new improved money or something. We just split his wages in half, so to make it look better on the books, you know. And again, that's not, you know, really like, those are decisions you make because you came to the club, Arthur is there, and you're like, F me, how am I going to need to deal with that? I need to clean up some money on the books to do something else. So I don't really have an issue with that. I have issues with the other decisions he's made, definitely. Same goes for this new management, you know, as well. Excuse me. So yeah, he's sacked, and there's no joy. When I saw that news, I was like, okay, cool. You know, no real shock that he got sacked, but no relief or something, because again, these players, the way they speak, the way they conduct themselves, yeah, there's just, the vibe is that of a club that just has no control over the situation, has no control over its players, has no real belief in what they're trying to do, not sure what they want to do. The players are in full control of that situation at this moment in time. And for me, that is very frustrating, you know. I think for the entire fan base, I see a lot of people in the chats saying the same thing, you know, or on social media saying that, yeah, you know, Tudor, yeah, he's not a good coach, and he did a poor job, so he got sacked, rightfully so, if you do a poor job. But, you know, the next one will do the same thing. You know, it will happen the same, because these players, again, are the consistent part in the failure of this club, or one of the consistent elements in the failure of this club. And the same players who should be the face of, who are, excuse me, shouldn't be, but are the face of this club, of this locker room, um, don't believe there is that much of an issue. So, yeah, what are we going to do about that? How many coaches do we need to sack until we realize the players are the problem? Well, apparently a couple of more. A couple of more. We're following in the Man U footsteps. Yeah, we are there. You know, sacking coaches, having no clue, buying players who shouldn't be at the club getting, you know, getting back, you know, or getting love, or getting, you know, trusted or respect, or like whatever, you know. And it's just a never. It's like Man U fans still rating Luke Shaw in 2025. That's the same vibe, you know, where it's like he wasn't good 5 years ago, let alone in 25. You know, that is the thing. Or Harry Maguire. Oh, but he's doing well right now. You know, he scored a couple of goals. Is he a good defender? No, he's not. Is he a defender of the level of Man U? No, he's not. So he shouldn't be here. It's as simple as that. The moment you start accepting these things is the moment you end up in this situation. That's why I will never accept people telling me certain things. I hate when people say he can do a job, but the job is being one of the main guy or trying to make a difference. No, for example, I've watched good players at this club. We all have watched good players on the squad at this club, and these players are not that. They ain't it. It's just as simple as that. They're not those guys. No other way to put it. The management failed to help Tudor in the summer. Now, not only did they fail to bring in a defender or a backup midfielder, they couldn't even get Colomani, which at least they should have done that. I agree that the club has done some damage to it, but Motta needed to play with Mbangula up top. Needed to use Rui and Savona. At the end of the day, yes, Tudor didn't want certain players, but man, we cannot get a shot on target. And I'm sorry. Raid, like, I'm not the biggest Openda fan, but you have Segrova, who he's not using, not even for 5 minutes. Segrova, Yildiz, Vlahovic, Conceição, Openda, David, and you're telling me we cannot even get a decent chance? We cannot have a shot on target? I'm sorry, I'm not having that, because the numbers these guys produce outside of Juve are big. They're big. The numbers don't lie. And we told Motta to do that with Mbangula. But I do agree. I do not rate a lot of these players, but still, we cannot even get a sniff on goal, while Lazio are doing that with players Sarri doesn't rate. Sarri left last summer when he just signed because he couldn't make a signing, by the way. So, yeah. But I do agree. We made some decisions, wrong decision. Rugani are Maguire and Kostic are Luke Shaw. Kind of. Maybe it's time to try with a non-Italian coach. What do you think? Yeah, Again, the Italian thing, it's like with Italian players, the national team is better with Juve players. I don't give two tosses about the national team. I'm a Juve fan. I care about the Juve. That's as simple. And if we need to win, and that means with 0 Italian players, it is with 0 Italian players. I don't care what the club's past said. Right now, there are no strong Italian players. Look at the national team, and the few that are out there, we cannot afford or not available. So what does that tell you? Don't force those Italian things on us. It needs to stop. It needs to stop. Maybe the coach as well, but who's going to be that? Who's going to be that coach? We're not being linked with that, so I'm assuming the club's not considering that at all at this moment in time. So let's see. Anyways, people, I'm gonna wrap this one up because I actually did, and I have things to do right now. I just did this quickly on the fly. I will be back live later tonight for like a normal show. How about Terzic? Again, not the biggest fan of him, but he could be one of those non-Italian options because he's been mentioned. Anyways, people, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done that as well. Really appreciate if you would do that. I will be live later today with just a normal live, and we'll see. Maybe there are some updates on the next coach, on what the club is thinking, about doing, what the club might be doing, etc. And then we'll talk about that later tonight. But yeah, that's it for me. Thanks for joining, and speak to you guys later. Ciao.